What's the most dangerous thing about riding in the rain? After spending 4 weeks on a PoliceAdvanced motorcycle course in some of the most worst weather you can imagine, I learned a lesson that completely changed the way that I ride in the wet. And today, in this video, I'd like to share those tips with you. Stay tuned. Riding in the rain. The truth about wet weather riding on a motorcycle. Hi folks, Carl here from Let's Ride Bikes, and today I want to talk to you about wet weather riding, i.e. riding in rain. Now if you've spent any time on bikes, particularly in England, you will know that we get a lot of rain, and rain generally creates two types of riders. There are those who seek out a dark cloud and immediately they go looking for shelter. Then there's the others who simply put on the waterproofs and carry on. Well, the truth is, in all honesty, every rider will have to ride in rain at some point. Regardless of how much you look at that weather forecast, you're going to be riding in rain. The bad news is, the hazards are still out there and can catch you out if you're not prepared. If you don't understand how rain affects grip and the road surface. So today I want to talk about adapting your riding technique, the hazards to watch out for, and perhaps bust a few myths about riding in wet weather as we go along. So the first thing I'd like to say is don't fear the rain, respect it. One of the biggest mistakes that riders make as soon as that first bit of water or rain hits the visor is they become tense. And I've talked about becoming tense in a previous video, so if you've not seen that one, go back and have a look at that. I'll put a link up here to that one. So the water's hit your visor, the bike's not suddenly become dangerous, the tyres haven't suddenly lost all the grip. What usually changes is riders' confidence. Modern motorcycle tyres are very, very good nowadays. In fact, in many situations they will grip the road as well in the wet as they do in the dry, and a bit later in the video I'll come on to a little story what proves that. The only difference is that in wet conditions you've got to be a little bit more respectful, a little bit more smoother with the controls of the bike. Smooth throttle, smooth steering, smooth cornering, smooth braking and smooth gear changes. And the wetter it gets, the smoother you need to be. So I'll tell you a story about what changed my belief and confidence in riding in wet weather. So I was a traffic cop all my life since being a kid, from when chips first started back in the 70s, was it? You remember Puncharello and John Baker riding around the California highway? I always wanted to do that. So that is what I'd aimed my career at being, is a motorbike cop eventually. Before you can become a motorbike cop, you first have to become a normal cop, a response car driver. Then if you're lucky, you apply for traffic, you go on to traffic, you have to do your advanced course, lots of refreshers, and you do several years as an advanced car driver on traffic before you even get a chance to get a bike. Getting a bike course is like filling dead men's shoes. They only come up when somebody either retires or comes off traffic, because when people get onto the bikes they want to stay on there, as you can appreciate. So anyway, I got my bike course come up. Now just one thing I will add here, before you get a bike course you've got to have been a biker, or certainly in my force, and you've got to have a lot of experience on bikes. It's no use just passing your test a few weeks ago and then saying, oh yeah, I'm a biker. You've got to have had a lot of experience, and you've got to be riding bikes quite considerably. I get the course. Now it's not just a weekend course. The Advanced Police Bike course is a course of 4 weeks where you're riding the bike every day for around about 8 hours a day. So it is quite intensive, and during those 4 weeks you're riding at quite high speeds in all different conditions, in all different places. You're not riding on familiar roads, you're riding all over the country, because that's one of the things about roadcraft is that you can apply that everywhere. One of the worst things is riding a road that you know really well, because you get overconfident on it and you tend not to use the system as much. If you're riding on roads what you don't know, you will use the system, and that's what it's there for. Anyway, the course starts. The first day you do a little bit of low riding manoeuvring around the cones, things like that, just getting used to the weight of the bike, because it might be the first time you've rode a bike that big. I personally did my course on the Pan-European, the ST1100. I love that bike. I had one of my own. I think I had 3 of those while I was in the force, and then we got the 1300s, but they got sent back after quite a few nasty accidents and a couple of police fatal accidents on that bike. I'm not going to go into that now, because that's a whole new other video topic of discussion, and I don't want to get into that because I think it's still ongoing on the legal side of things on what happened. So as I say, for the advanced course you've got to have been experienced. You've been a class 1 police class 1 advanced car driver for some time. You're now doing the police class 1 bike course. So roadcraft at this point is second nature to you. You've been using it every day. Every time you go out in the car, you've been using it. You're quite experienced in roadcraft. What the course is about is developing roadcraft, the system of motorcycle control this time, into the application of riding the bike. It's about learning to ride to the system, making progress, riding safely, and getting to your destination in one piece and going home at the end of the day, and at the same time operating at a very high standard. So the third day of our course, the weather changed from being okay to absolutely miserable, and for the next 3 weeks we had torrential rain almost every day, all day. After a couple of days of riding in those conditions, we had I think we was in leathers at the time with waterproof jackets over the top. We later went on to the Gore-Tex materials, which was a lot better. So the leathers were wet. The gloves, you struggled to put your hands in them, because when you took them out, there was that wet, it pulled all the lining out. I think I got through 3 sets of gloves from the stores on that course. The helmets, you got your own helmet, and the water was getting sucked up like capillary action, sucking the water up inside the helmet. So you put it on in the morning and you got a freezing cold helmet, because they've been in the garages overnight, and it was wet through. And because the helmet's wet inside, as soon as you start breathing, the visor mists up. You open the visor up a little bit to try and clear that mist, but it's still raining, so you're getting even more water in. It was a nightmare, really was a nightmare, but you carry on regardless. So as I say, it's heavy rain, and we're on the course, and me and my mates, we're a little bit apprehensive. Yes, we're experienced riders, but we're riding at a level now that you've never ridden at before, not on a public road. And we were still a little bit cagey about going into the bends and stuff, and you could see the instructor and he's like banking it over, like, and you're thinking, what planet's he on? Has he got stabilizers on? And he kept saying to us this particular day, the tyres will grip the road in the wet as good as they do in the dry, as long as you've not got any other influencing factor such as diesel or oil. If you've got that on the road, it's a whole different ball game. There's nothing you can do about that. You face that when you come to it. But for general riding, after a few hours of rain on a road, it's okay. The grip's there. And we were just like nodding and yesing and agreeing, but still up here you're thinking, do you know what, I'm not entirely convinced about this. And that particular night, and I remember it so well because I've told this story to so many of my pupils, my students, I went home that night, and I don't know if you read Bike magazine. For those of you in the UK, you'll have heard about it. And there was a big feature about tyres. I got home, I had it on subscription, and it was there in the mailbox when I got home. And I thought, oh, tyres, I'll have a read of this. And what does it say? Modern day tyres will grip the road as well in the wet as they do in the dry. And I read this, I think it was about a 3-page spread. And I thought, do you know what? Brian, that was the instructor, is right in what he's saying. When I go back tomorrow, I'm going to put this to the test. And we got to work and we're in the briefing, and Danny, my mate who I was on the course with, I told him what I'd read. He says, do you know what? I were reading that as well. He says, let's give it a bash. What we got to lose, they're not our bikes. That was the attitude. So that day we went out and we put our faith totally into the bikes. I'm not saying we was driving like idiots, because you're not. You're still driving to the system, but the confidence when we was going into bends, being totally relaxed, because before, yes, we were a little bit tense because we were frightened. We'd not got the confidence at that time in the bikes, in the tyres. That next day, riding, it was a total different ball game. It went from, oh shit, we've got another bend coming up, to, whoa, we've got a bend coming up. And it totally changed like that. The confidence in the tyres, the confidence in the handling. And I've never looked back on it from that day. And it's one of the first things I always tell my students when I've been teaching. If it's been wet weather, I've told them this story and I've explained it to them. And you can see it makes a difference to everybody's riding. Just that extra little bit of confidence in the bike, in the tyres, and of course in your ability. Now, just because modern tyres are so good today, it doesn't mean that we can ride exactly the same as we do in the dry conditions. The first thing I always do if it's raining is I increase my safety margins. So if I'm on a motorway, dual carriageway, or even on A roads, I increase the distance between me and the vehicle in front. Now in the dry, we teach people always follow the 2-second rule. So if you're not sure what that is, when that vehicle in front of you passes an object like a manhole cover or something like that, count yourself 1 1,000, 2 1,000. If you get to it before you get to that 2 1,000, you're too close. You're closer than 2 seconds. And if that vehicle suddenly stops, you're going to be in the back of him. Don't matter how good your reflexes are. Don't matter how good your braking system is. If you're within 2 seconds, there's a very, very good likelihood that you're going to hit that vehicle if he suddenly stops. Now, I know people can't just suddenly stop. They have to slow down to stop. But if it suddenly stops, let's say a car pulls out and he hits it, bang. If you're within 2 seconds, there's a good likelihood that you're going to hit it. So another thing I used to teach people is say that rule to yourself, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. And don't, which is a very easy mistake to make, is speed up the counting if you think you're going to get there quicker than 2,000. I've done it myself. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, in rain, you need to double that. So you need to be up to 4 seconds. And by increasing that distance of 4 seconds, you're giving yourself a lot more time. Because in the heavy rain, you don't want to just be snatching on the brakes for an emergency stop like you would in the dry. Because inevitably, your bike's going to lock up, possibly. ABS is very good these days. But you might get into a skid. If you've increased that 4 seconds, you can still do an emergency stop, but you can do it a lot more smoothly, a lot more controlled, which means your bike's going to stay upright. Hopefully. The other thing to do if it's raining, reduce your speed slightly. You don't have to lose a lot, but just reduce it a little bit. If you're doing a lot of bend and twisty work, if you're not a rider what's riding in those conditions regularly, just slow it down a little bit. You've not got anything to prove to anybody. It's not an ego trip out there. Just slow it down a little bit and make sure you get home at the end of the day to see your kids or your missus. The aim's not to ride slower. The aim is to create more time and space, more reaction time. Time and space can resolve most riding incidents before they happen, before they become emergencies. And if visibility and stopping distances are longer, it gives you more time to react. It gives you extra room and it makes more sense. So one of the things I have noticed, and this is through training people and just following people out on the road, just need a bit of a swallow. See, this is live, it's not AI. One of the things I've noticed is that people, instead of extending the view, they actually bring the view closer back to the bike. And that's one of the worst things you can do. They start looking closer at the front wheel. In wet conditions, you should be looking further ahead than you do normally. Now you should be looking quite a way ahead anyway, and then just bring it back, looking further ahead, scanning. That's the word, scan. Scan from between the front of your bike to as far as you can see and come back again, out to the sides. Not forgetting your mirrors. Always be as conscious as what's behind you as what's in front of you. But keep that vision extended. Don't bring it back too close. The sooner you identify a hazard in front of you, or behind you, but we'll talk about in front, the sooner you can identify a hazard, the sooner you can react to it. So if you can see that there's a junction on your near side and there's a vehicle approaching that junction, if you can see it well before you get to it, you can adjust your speed, you can adjust your position, using the system, use the information, take it, use it, give it, adapt your position, your speed, your gear. Once you're past it, you're into the acceleration zone. So looking further ahead gives you more time to react to that. If you're looking down a couple of meters in front of your wheel looking for that patch of diesel or whatever, you're not going to see that car 200 yards in front of you. You're going to be looking here, and then he comes up, you panic, oh shit, game over. Good riding is proactive, not reactive. So look well ahead, read the road, plan early, and avoid surprises. So here's something that surprises a few riders. The rain itself isn't the problem. It can be sometimes, but generally it's not the rain itself. It's the contaminants on the road surface that causes the problems. And the contaminants on the road are the things that we need to be conscious of and are what are going to cause the problems for us. So we're talking about diesel spillages, fuel spills, oil spills, mud, farm waste, horse shit, stuff what drops off the back of tractors, mud, gravel, centre junctions, side of the road, wet leaves if you're driving through overgrown areas. All of these can reduce dramatically any available grip what you've got. And one of the most dangerous times riding in wet weather is within the first half hour of it starting to rain, especially if we've had a dry period. The water lifts the oil and fuel deposits from the surface of the tarmac or concrete on some roads, let's say from the road surface, and that's what creates the slippery film over the road, and that's what's dangerous to us as bikers. Once the heavy rain's been falling for quite a while, like on our advanced ride where it had been raining for 3-4 weeks, those contaminants do eventually get washed away, and that's when the grip is at its optimum. Let's talk about white lines. A lot of riders are told that white lines are like ice when they become wet. Well, saying they can be like ice I think is a bit of an exaggeration. And today modern road markings, they use an additive in the paint which does put some grip in there. Yes, it's not going to be as grippy as the tarmac surface, but there is still a little bit of grip in there. However, they can still be slippery, particularly when braking on them or leaning over, banking the bike, when you've not got as much of the surface of the tyre in contact with the road. And obviously if you're accelerating as well, similar sort of thing. Well, the answer is don't panic every time you see a white line. The answer, as with most things, is awareness. And where possible, avoid making major changes to your riding when you're riding over something like a white line. If you know you've got to lose some speed, lose it. If you've got a brake, do your braking before you get to the white line. Can you change your position slightly so if you're into a bend, you're not actually going to ride right over the white line, you're going to be to the side of it, one side or the other. It's all about awareness, forward observations, forward planning. And the thing is, cross them smoothly and keep your bike settled. None of this getting tense and your bike coming up. We've talked about this before. Just keep nice and relaxed. If you're committed, you're committed, and just do it. Same principle applies to metalwork on roads, drain covers, manhole covers, access plates, steel bridge surfaces, cattle grids, tram lines or tracks. When wet, these surfaces do provide a lot less grip. So again, be smooth, no harsh braking, no excessive banking, no excessive acceleration, nice and smooth, and keep the bike upright if possible. Now if you're riding on country roads, you need to be even more alert. Farm traffic creates a whole new kind of hazard. Mud dragged onto the road, silage residue, animal waste, gravel, debris, standing water, and after rain those hazards can become even more slippery. And do you want to go sliding down on animal waste? Because I don't. So whenever I go into a farmy area, and in the Peak District we've got loads of it, then I'm always a little bit more aware and a little bit more cautious. And automatically start to expect those contaminants, what I've just mentioned, on the road. And then it's not a surprise to you. If it's there, I'm prepared. And if it's not, crack on. So let's talk a little bit about braking. Many bikers are frightened about using the front brake in the wet, and this fear is usually misplaced. Your front brake still remains the most efficient brake you've got on the bike. The key to braking in the wet is progressive application. Squeeze the lever. Don't just grab at it, squeeze it. Pull it in and gently exert more pressure as you need it, rather than just going from 0 to 100%. Just bring it in nice and steady. Allow time for your suspension to load up. That's a big part of the braking system on the bikes, is that the suspension and the preload need to be working for the brakes to be more effective. So allow the suspension to dip slightly, start to apply more brake pressure. Even on wet roads, you'll be surprised at how much brake pressure you can put on. And as I said earlier, modern day bikes, a lot of bikes now have got ABS. What I will say is, if you've never had ABS kick in, either on a car or a bike, the first time it does kick in can be quite bum squeaky time, because it's a totally strange phenomena what you won't have experienced, and it's like bam, 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 bam. It's doing its job. It's bringing the wheel almost to a lock and then releasing and applying, release and apply, release and apply, but it does it so quick that it stops the wheel actually skidding. But the noise and the sensation of it, you'll think your brake lever has gone funny. It's a strange sensation, and you don't want to be doing it a lot, but if you can practice it somewhere where it's safe, off-road, just to engage your ABS, it might be worth doing. You might be better doing it at a training school what's got a bike with outriders on, so that if it does come in, you're not going to drop the bike over, just so you can get an experience of what ABS actually feels like when it comes in. Because as I say, the first time it does it, you think, what the hell's happening here? So cornering in the rain. Cornering doesn't fundamentally change. Still good position, still good observations, still the appropriate speed, appropriate gear or the correct gear, smooth throttle control, and these principles remain exactly the same if you're driving in the wet or the dry. You just adjust accordingly. Leave yourself a little bit more reserve. Enter slightly slower if necessary, therefore you're not having to bank the bike over as much. Maintain smooth throttle control throughout the bend. Nothing dramatic, just a little extra margin, that's all it needs. So rain affects more than grip, it affects your visibility. Your visor's wet, it might be misted up on the inside, your screen's going to be water splattered. We don't have windscreen wipers on bikes, although I have seen a video recently, and I can't remember where it is, it might have been the SEGs down in London, where they've actually got a windscreen wiper fitted into the visor of the helmet. Don't know how good that's going to be, whether it's just a marketing gimmick. Some gloves have got a little squeegee on what you can wipe. What I find the best thing to do is get your head out of the, if you've got a fairing on, get your head out of the protected area, just turn your face one way, turn your face the other, still looking forward. I don't mean doing it like you're doing a shoulder check, but just turn it slightly, maybe angle it over, and the wind will blow it off. I used to use something, is it called Rain-X or something like that, and it was a little bottle of spray, and you put it on, just wiped it on, and it evaporated, and then when the water hit it, it just used to bead and run off. You can do something similar with washing up liquid. It's just a bit messier to put on, that's all. But anything like that, what assists the water getting displaced from your helmet, is quite a good thing. The thing you've got to remember when riding in rain, it's not just your visibility, it's other people's visibilities, and can they see you? A car we've all seen the cars what are driving around and their windows are totally misted up, and all they've done, they've got the heater setting on the recycle mode, so it's just pumping damp air back into the car. But they'll come to a junction and you can see them, they're wiping the window like this. Has he seen you? Advanced observations, looking ahead, you're going to spot that car straight away. He's going to stand out from the others. If he's like that, even consider using your horn when you're approaching him. Reduce your speed, alter your position, and make sure he's seen you. And get ready to take evasive action if he hasn't. Use your lights in rain. I always ride with lights on anyway, but particularly in rain, make sure you've got your lights on. A rider who is visible has a much better chance of avoiding a problem before it starts. So just bear that in mind. If there's one message I'd like you to take away from this video today, and I know it's been a long one and I apologise for that, but I really do hope that you find something useful in this video. And if this video saves one person having an accident in the rain, then I think I've done the job. Don't underestimate the capabilities of the modern bikes and modern tyres. Respect the rain, respect the hazards, but don't fear them. Ride smoothly, increase your safety margins, look further ahead, watch for contaminants, and trust your tyres. Because in my experience as a police rider and an instructor, the biggest limitation in the wet often isn't the motorcycle, it's the rider's confidence. And once you understand what's really happening beneath you, riding in the rain becomes far less intimidating and actually can be more fun. I used to love riding in the rain. Thanks for watching, and if you've got your own wet weather stories, wet weather riding stories, leave a comment below. And don't forget, in the comments below there's a link where you can join our Let's Ride Biker Insider Club newsletter group. I promise not to spam you. And there's also a link in there if you want to join our Patreon group, where you'll get some behind the scenes stuff, Q&A sessions, things like that. Well, anyway, that's it for this week. I'll see you next time. Hope you find that useful. Don't forget the thumbs up and subscribe and all that malarkey. See ya. Stay safe.